1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, they said he couldn't do it, and this was his own party. But he did. Malcolm Turnbull, my hero, has not only united the warring factions of the Liberal Party so that they can more easily hit each other, but he's also united a country riven with discord, a prime example of which is Australia. And I say prime example because Australia is a country capable of being divided by itself and won. And I think we all know who that one is. But there have been those in the party who believed in Malcolm's manifest destiny. Though many of us became lost this last week in the fog of political uncertainty, Scott Morrison was there as our guiding tugboat, the lonely beacon from a distant lighthouse, a Jack the Ripper to Labor's hopes and dreams prostitute. As he said,
It was a tough night on Saturday night, but the likely outcome here is that, of course, the government will form a government.
Yes. Yes, and being able to form a government is a handy skill for a government to have. Because if a government can't form a government, then ontologically it'd be an existential paradox, and that's a very difficult thing to explain to an electorate who can't even get their head around negative gearing. But now that we actually have a government, things get very interesting, because the coalition claims that the swing against them was because of what Labor told everybody the coalition would do to Medicare if it got back in. You remember? And it follows that because the swing wasn't enough to keep the coalition out of office, that they now have a mandate to destroy Medicare in exactly the same way Labor said they would. I mean, as far as slogans go, jobs and growth was fine, but obviously fuck Medicare resonated more strongly with voters. Bill Shorten, of course, has not been resting on his laurels this week, travelling far and wide and thanking everyone for not quite electing him Prime Minister. And during this failure lap of the country, talk of a threat to his leadership has, like a colourful doona, died down. As Shadow Assistant Treasurer Andrew Lee said,
the only problem that Bill Shorten's going to have when he walks into the next room of Labor supporters is getting the applause to die down so he can actually speak.
I mean, it'd be very tempting to keep applauding, wouldn't it? That's a very, very easy thing to do when he keeps coming up with zingers like this.
Mr Turnbull tried to capitalise on the Brexit vote and say, oh, therefore, because of what happened in England, you had to vote for him in Australia. He Brexited himself.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shaggy dog one, but it had a good punchline. Now, even though everything has turned out okay, it's only human to look back and wonder what might have been. What's surprising is that members of the Liberal Party are doing this as well. Now, I'm not suggesting they aren't human. Of course they're not. It's just not very helpful, that's all. Tony Abbott handled it beautifully, I thought, when someone asked him whether he could have done a better job during the campaign if he was PM.
I think that's an entirely hypothetical question.
I mean, he's right, of course. It was an entirely hypothetical question. The journalist wasn't asking him whether he'd actually done a better job as PM this election. That question, presumably, he would have been prepared to answer. Personally, I think he would have been great. His victory speech when he won back the seat of Warringah was more prime ministerial than anyone else's this election.
And I think my mum's down the back there. Where are you, Mum? Mum's down the back there, very close to the bar, I believe. Because drinking to excess is funny. Particularly when it's your mother. Very, very relatable. Actually, I tell you what, listen to me. I tell you who looked and sounded more prime ministerial than anybody else this last week, though, and that was John Howard. Do you remember him? Remember John? He used to actually be a Prime Minister many, many years ago, back in the olden days when we used to have a surplus. And just before then, public utilities. And there's no rat-patting or ads about growing up poor in Vaucluse for him. No. Last week, he gave a speech about important things like the war crimes he's accused of. And he did so not on a playground or at a watermelon factory or some other, oh, look at me, I'm just like you location. He did it at a podium in front of a blue backdrop flanked by 2 Australian flags. A setup which I assume, as ex-Prime Minister, he keeps in his garage for emergencies. And not only did he defend his decision to plunge our country into an unwinnable war because George promised him a necklace, and not only did he do what he does best and not apologise for anything, least of all his part in creating IS, he did something that Tony Abbott was too gutless to do, and he weighed in on the petty infighting of his own party.
I just say to people who feel that this or that kidney of the party is being ignored, you stay in and fight. You don't start wandering off the reservation.
Kidneys. It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? The Liberal Party is the renal system of the country, cleaning the bad blood with the right and left factional kidneys and then ridding the body politic of its urine via the organ of government. Of course, you only need one kidney to survive, but then who's it going to fight with? And if both of them wander off, then you're bound to end up with another leadership spill. But any incontinence caused by the government's duelling kidneys was staunched by the adult diaper that is Bob Katter, who was keen to support the Turnbull government if they needed him, pledging his loyalty for the greater good.
I do so with no great enthusiasm, and I maintain my right to move at any point of time in another direction.
And this much-needed support was further enhanced by the news of Liberal Party Federal Director Tony Nutt, not one of our made-up names, and Tony Abbott having lunch 3 days after the election.
Does Malcolm Turnbull know that you were in discussions with Tony Abbott just now?
Thank you very much. I've had a nice, pleasant lunch with Mr Abbott, who's a senior member of the Parliamentary Party.
So, Mr Abbott's gone into the lunch as a backbencher and come out as a senior member of the Parliamentary Party. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Anyway, like Tony, I think it's unhelpful to speculate on hypothetical questions, but if Mr Abbott does still have leadership ambitions, then he's certainly tightened his grip with the support of Nut and Bolt. But the government has got its lower house in order. That's the main thing. Where it might run into trouble, though, is with that lot upstairs. Now, I'd like to go out on a bit of a limb here and treat these people with the respect that some of your less reputable news outlets like The Australian, The Western Australian, The Business Insider, the ABC, and even news.com.au seem to delight in denying them. Take Darren Hinch, for example, seen here on the left. He is, like you and me and every person, someone not afraid to go to jail for contempt of court or to admit he's never voted and yet still run for political office in a party with the word justice in the title. That takes guts. And Darren's serious about the job ahead of him and is quite prepared to go to court again if the major parties use the Electoral Act to relegate him to 3 years in the Senate instead of the 6 he's expecting. Major domo to Darren Hinch, General Zod. Surely it's hubris on Darren's part to say he's going to take the government to court.
Why do you say this to me when you know that I must kill you for it?
Well, it's just that being the Justice Party, I would have thought that Darren would have to start obeying the law now.
Today begins a new order. Your lands, your possessions, your very lives will gladly be given in tribute to Darren Hinch. In return for your obedience, you will enjoy his generous protection. Who else is seeing this?
Well, Offspring's on at the moment, and MasterChef runs over, so probably no one.
Who is this MasterChef?
Well, it's a very popular cooking show.
More popular than Darren?
Sure. I mean, if George Columbaris had run for the Senate, Darren would be back answering phones at 3AW.
Come to me, MasterChef. I defy you. Come and kneel before Zod.
Wow. That's the kind of invitation that Tony Jones offers on Q&A. Thank you, General Zod. Still, I'm sure the senators will be able to put aside their egos and work together because they've got a lot more in common than you'd think. Fred Niles' Christian Democratic Party, for example, wants to amend Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act so that they can offend and insult people of different races and religions. So do Darren and Pauline Hanson. And Pauline, for her part, seems to have quite a lot in common with Jackie Lambie. Not only do they both like wearing the Australian flag as a cape, they both want no halal and a royal commission into Islam. Yet Jackie says she has serious concerns about Pauline's views, and Pauline has accused Jackie of stealing her shoes.
Jackie Lambie's Chief of Staff, Dolly Norman. Does it shock you that Jackie now seems one of the more reasonable crossbench senators?
Shaun, Jackie has never been cross. Jackie has been what she always was, a feisty, one-woman assault team lone wolf. She practically chewed off her own leg to escape from the clutches of the Palmer United bear trap. And she's perfectly prepared to do it again, rather than join the dots with anyone else's shoes she steps in.
But on Jackie's policies on Muslims, they're very similar to Pauline's, aren't they? One Nation wants CCTV in mosques, and last year Jackie wanted to electronically tag Syrian refugees.
Yeah, Shaun, I just tell you, they're only the ones coming into this country. Yeah, not the ones in Syria, because, I mean, that place is bloody full of them. It'd be so expensive. And Jackie is not an idiot.
Yes, well, I think we have footage of Jackie not being an idiot.
I'm making sure that I'm putting Australia's safety first. That's what I'm doing. So if that means that we're going to monitor them with electronic bracelets on, then that's what we do. We need to discuss whether or not we should be putting electronic bracelets on them. Now, we're not putting them in detention centres as far as what I know. We're just going to allow them to come in here and integrate straight away. So all I'm asking for is safety precautions to be put in place. We must put Australians first, and we must talk about how we're going to do this. And I'm just asking that electronic bracelets be put on the table.
Yeah. Particularly if that table has halal meat on it.
If you don't like how the table is set, turn over the table. Thank you, Dolly. But the question remains, how long will these senators last? 3 years or 6? Dr. Hannibal Chu, questions. Morphology, longevity, incept dates.
I don't know such stuff. I just do eyes. Just eyes. Just genetic design. Just eyes.
Yes.
You from JLN, huh? I design your eyes.
True, if you could see what I've seen through your eyes, like the Cadbury chocolate factory in Claremont.
I only do eyes.
No, I'm good. Thank you. But the biggest threat to the coalition being able to run this country the way Malcolm wants is this senator, whose almost naked ambition was never more rampant than in his announcement last week that he was forming a movement to unite Australian Conservatives regardless of their party affiliation. Mind you, I'm not sure quite how seriously we should take Corey, given that he appears to have drawn his logo with a crayon. And if the Conservatives are worried Labor will be soft on borders, isn't it strange that Corey's version of Australia doesn't even have any borders? Dolly, would you like to throw the ads?
Oh, yes, that'd be great, Shaun, yeah. Still to come later in the week.
Very good.
Oh, thank you. Now available from ABC shops for the very first time is the ABC's unique blend of Insider's coffee. Marvel as you discover that freshly brewed Insider's coffee is routinely and regularly ignored by guests week after week, saving you time and money as cups and saucers are left unsoiled. Insider's coffee's rich, smooth and freshly roasted taste will remain an untested claim as guests, regardless of political persuasion, consistently refuse to touch it. Insider's coffee, free and now available in handy silo packs.
Welcome back. Well, I think it's important when you're a multi-award-winning comedy show like us to not only be funny, but also tell people how to live their lives. Health and safety has always been one thing, or two if you count them correctly, that we're very concerned about here at Mad As, and that we're happy to give advice on instead of actually entertaining you with content. All part of the service here at the Mad As Help Desk. Now, in the last couple of months, we've seen quite a few product safety recalls for a variety of products. The Arlec handheld work light for risk of fire, the Kmart metal chair for entrapment or laceration hazard, the IKEA Latjo bat cape for risk of strangulation or injuries to the neck, and the Ariston and Indeset domestic tumble dryer for risk of fire. Then there was the Well and Good chocolate mud cake mix for the presence of dairy, the Supreme powerful bleach cleaner for fluid leaking from the bottle, the Dimples infant sleeping bag for press studs posing a potential choking hazard, the Kuchef digital glass kettle for the top of the handle coming loose or detaching, the Aldi Imperial grain brown rice cups for potential growth of mould, and the Kmart homemaker fan for electric shock. Coral Tunt, these sorts of product safety recalls came a little late for you, didn't they? Tell us what happened.
Well, I was in the kitchen. I'd made a Well and Good chocolate mud cake for my youngest, Selena, she's 2, and was just sitting down to some Aldi Imperial grain fried rice for my dinner when I saw Selena put one of the press studs from the Dimples infant sleeping bag in her mouth, and she starts choking, so I rush over and she vomits it up all over the sleeping bag. So I grabbed some Supreme powerful bleach cleaner to clean it up, and the bottle leaks bleach all over my hands, burning them very badly. So I grabbed the Kuchef digital glass kettle to pour some cold water over them, but the handle comes loose and the kettle falls on my foot, breaking 3 toes. So I pick up the body of the kettle with my blistering hands and limp over to the sleeping bag and pour water on it to wash off the bleach and vomit. Then limp back with the wet sleeping bag and put it in the Ariston domestic tumble dryer. But when I turn that on, it catches fire. So I take the wet sleeping bag out of the dryer and use it to smother the flames. Of course, the house is full of smoke by now, so I turn on the Kmart homemaker fan to clear it. And I get an electric shock and collapse unconscious. When Selena's screaming woke me up, the house was in darkness, the dryer had shorted the circuit, so I grabbed the Arlec handheld work light and turned that on. But then that caught fire, burning my already scalded hands, but thankfully the flames from the burning work light lit up the room, enough for me to see that Selena was screaming because she got the IKEA Latjo bat cape on and it's pulled around her neck and choking stroking her. So I limp over to her and struggle to get it off with my red raw hands until finally I sit down exhausted in the Kmart metal chair, lacerating the ankle on my good foot as Selena, who's dairy intolerant, vomits up the mud cake all over my mouldy fried rice, which was a blessing.
Well, Coral, thank you so much for telling us your important story, and please accept with our compliments this mad-as-hell gift pack of unregistered insect repellent, better than tablets that may contain a completely different drug, and IKEA safety gates that pose a significant risk to children.
Oh, lovely.
To non-political news now, and as most of you know, greyhound racing has been banned in New South Wales, which means that many of us will now have to gamble on something else. But what? Oh, that's right, everything else that exists. But what about those of us who don't like to be told what to do by big government? What about our right to do what we want without even thinking about it? One man whose livelihood has been ruined by Mike Baird's Big Brother nanny state approach to the skinny dog industry is Tinker Baboon.
Shaun, it's been a tough week, not only for the punters, as you've mentioned, but also my business.
That's building fake rabbits.
That's right, Shaun. I've been in the artificial bunny racket for 3 months now, and this news has devastated me. As you can see, I'm pretty good at it. I mean, I defy you to tell the difference between this one and another one that's in my bag that's exactly the same.
But what about the punters, Tink? Can't they bet on another animal that runs around in a circle like a horse or a lobotomised monkey?
Horses aren't predators, Shaun. They'd no sooner be chasing one of my fake rabbits than Yana Pittman. And even if I could retool my factory to start making fake cubes of sugar, I think the sight of a bunch of horses running after an electronically powered condiment would be frankly ridiculous. No, my only option is to release these fellas into the wild and let them fend for themselves. I don't know how they're going to go out there in the food chain with no need to participate in it. I can only hope that some virus or cane toad is introduced in a few years' time to control their numbers.
Yes, I'm sure they'll be fine.
Bye-bye, Bugs. I call him Bugs because he's riddled with lice.
Well, do get on with it. Well, still to come later in the week.
The fairy tale story of a simple man with a vision of the Australian dream, complicated by a world awake to the sound of noises.
Oh, yeah. I remember we were at a middle-aged Liberal Party function. Jeanette and I were arguing over Prue Goward. She was lying unconscious on the table between us. And Dame Paddy came up and said, Robert wants to speak to you. He's out in the car park. I said, Paddy, Sir Robert's been dead for 12 years. He must be hallucinating again. And she said, no, he's there. He's in the back of my truck. So I went out and had a look, and sure enough, there was Sir Robert covered in mud, chained to the roll bar of Dame Paddy's ute. He was incoherent, of course, and raving and trying to bite us. Apparently during the Suez crisis he'd been mauled by a zombie. And he hadn't taken his precautions, and well, you know, that came back to haunt him. It was a valuable lesson on the nature of politics, and one I never forgot. No. I didn't forget that one.
Well, speaking of John Howard, let's have a look at the Chilcot report. The Chilcot report into the war in Iraq has been released, and freak me sideways, it's a
12-volume, 2.6 million word report.
Now, I'll not lie to you, I haven't had time to read it all, but my researcher has summarised it for me on a post-it note. Pansy, I only got to skim the post-it note. What does it say in general terms?
Well, Shaun, it says that at 2.6 million words, if you sat down and read just one word of the Chilcot report every year for the rest of your life, it would take you 2.6 million years to finish. Or, as I wrote on Emma Alberici's post-it note, it's
around 4 times the size of War and Peace.
Is that a fair comparison to make, Pansy? Leo Tolstoy's masterwork and the Chilcot report?
I think so, Shaun. One's a work of fiction based on historical fact. The other's a work of historical fact based on hysterical fiction.
Right. But when... Yes, but when Napoleon invaded Russia, it wasn't to control their oil fields, was it?
Someone would have to ask Napoleon that, Shaun.
Was it? Yeah.
Now, all this talk of other countries does sound suspiciously like...
News from countries that aren't Australia, brought to you by Colotto Hams, proud sponsors of Right Minded with Casper Jonquil.
And what about the price of fags? If I was a smoker, I'd throw an industrial quantity of tobacco into a power station combustion turbine and stand around the smokestack inhaling. Then it legally counts as carbon abatement and I'm eligible for credits from the Emissions Reduction Fund. The government would have to pay me.
Wednesday nights at 11:59.
Well, China has finished constructing the world's largest radio telescope at a cost of $185 million. It's pretty expensive for a Chinese dish. I don't care how much complimentary green tea comes with it. To Lithuania now, where a town has held its annual goat beauty pageant. Can you believe the UK voted to leave this sort of shit? Goats came from all around Lithuania for the pomp and circumstance and the chance to be chosen by a local member of parliament, the head of the local school, and a cucumber farmer. The most beautiful goat was crowned in a fairy tale ceremony that the locals are still talking about today. See? I assume she's talking Lithuanian. The lucky winner was Little Spot, and her shepherd Aramantis Calvitis joins us now. Aramantis, you must be delighted.
Oh, Shaun, it is like a dream come true. Sure. Look how beautiful she is, eh?
Yes, she's lovely.
Of course, some people say it is wrong to judge a goat by the way she looks, like she's some slab of meat, but... She is very smart and did very well in the question-answer section on world politics. And then what she would do if she was UN Secretary General. I think that is why the judges choose her, you know, particularly cucumber farmer.
What are her duties now that she's queen?
She's mainly ceremonial, Shaun. She does not exert actual authority in Lithuania in terms of passing legislation or ordering execution of criminals, but she visits hospital, that sort of thing.
Wouldn't that be a little unhygienic?
It is a risk she is prepared to take, in order to spread joy and enchantment. And it must be said, quite a bit of poop to those in need.
Yes, I don't think it needed to be said. Later on in the show, the discovery of a vast supply of helium in Tanzania's Rift Valley and how it will help alleviate worldwide shortages. We'll be crossing to Dar es Salaam, where a dangerous gas leak is threatening the entire operation. So you've stopped the leak?
Absolutely. The boys have it under control. They're a good team.
Yeah, are you sure, though? Because it sounds to me a bit like...
Shaun, I've been capping gas wells for 30 years now. I think I know what I'm doing.
These worker bees will spend 2 years building their hive. When they have saved up enough money, they will leave the hive and spend a week living on this woman in Guernsey. It will give them a chance to unwind, relax, and sting her repeatedly.
Shaun Micallefs holidaying worker bees of the Channel Isles. Sunday, 7:43 on ABC.
Well, heads have rolled over the Brexit. David Cameron, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, Michael Gove and Andrea Leadsom are all now considerably shorter, having bared their necks to the unyielding blade of public opinion. But what does this mean for Britain and, less importantly, Europe? It's a question which requires a very special wisdom of the elders.
Well, Your Royal Highness, first of all, thank you so much for very graciously agreeing to this interview.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Waitrose Dutchy organic beetroot?
No, thank you, Your Royal Highness. Very kind.
Very well. Oh, incidentally, don't worry about all this Your Royal Highness nonsense. Feel free to call me Your Highness. Dropping the royal might anyway appeal to your Australian Republican tendencies, I think.
Yes, very good, Your Highness.
Yes.
Yes.
Fermented stoat?
No, thank you.
No?
Right. Your Royal Highness, Your Highness, sorry. Can I ask you how you felt about leaving the European Union?
Well, I was of two minds about it, really. On the one hand, of course, I am European. My father is Greek. My great-great-grandmother, of course, was German, so it's in my blood. And of enormous importance to my sense of being. On the other mind, I couldn't care less and didn't even bother voting. To Mummy, of course, it's terribly important. Terribly. I mean, it's all relative, I suppose, isn't it? Particularly Camilla, who is my cousin, my relative, and of course, that's why I was instantly attracted to her. Free-range eel.
I couldn't.
Go on.
No, thank you.
Just have 3.
No, thank you, Your Highness. It's very kind. Can I ask you then whether the Duchess of Cornwall was disappointed at Brexit?
Well, you'd have to ask her, I suppose. She's not here at the moment, as you can plainly see by looking around the room.
Yes.
Unless she's under the table. She might be hiding there. She's got a marvellous sense of humour, as Camilla. She may have gone under there, you see.
I see.
But I don't think so on this occasion. I think she's out in the garden draining the weasel.
Well, I don't want to disturb her if she's in...
No. I don't mean that quite literally. She actually drains weasels. It's part of our environmental work we do here in what's left of Britain. We capture waterlogged weasels and ferrets and what have you and empty them out into the Thames, and they're much happier for it, and water is conserved. In fact, Francis, I can call you that, there's something I'd like you to see. My equerry will give you a letter of introduction and accompany you.
If you'd like to follow me, Mr. Greenslade. Just through here, if you will.
And enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself. I'll tuck into the eel.
Shaun? Thank you very much, Francis. Well, not coming up because Catherine Tate's on in a minute. MP fails to convince Parliament he's Prime Minister. People smugglers take advantage of increased carry-on baggage allowance. And Corey Bernardi starts new Conservative outlaw motorcycle gang. Well, finally, there's a new force in federal politics that's gone under the radar, in my opinion. The top three players in terms of the first preferences in the House of Reps are the coalition parties, Labor and the Greens on 9.9% of the vote. The fourth highest is the informal party on 5.1%. In fact, more people voted informal than voted for the National Party, which must put pressure on Barnaby Joyce to stand aside in favour of not having a leader or running a campaign. The informal party also spent nothing on advertising, although they did have a much more clear and effective logo. Goodbye.
Time, baby.